Hi, welcome. This is a reading of Walking a Rainbow by me, Michael Shearer, about the Camino de Santiago with me and my son Kez, age 9. This is chapter 10. Chapter 10, A Special Place. This begins as we arrive at the first water fountain at Puente la Reina in the afternoon. Is there a refuge here? Asked Kez. I hope so. I took out the day's sketch map from my back pocket. Well, according to this, the refuge is just over there. A monastery. Los Padres Reparadores. The repairing fathers, the healing fathers, maybe. Sounds about right, apart from the gender. We went and knocked on the door of the good fathers. A very neat monk answered the door. Everyone has their own emotional flavour, the feel of their presence. This chap felt freshly scrubbed. He felt clean, uncontaminated, newly emerged from a mountain stream. He smiled, and it felt real. He took us in, and then along to a small office where he meticulously filled in our details in a large ledger, each pilgrim listed and numbered. He stamped our pilgrim passports. Order prevailed here. Having literally booked us in, he showed us to our cells. We were each given a tiny room on the first floor, next to each other. Long and narrow, each had a bed and a small desk and not much else. Simple and adequate. The window looked down onto a quadrangle, a simple stone arcade at ground level all the way round. Then two plain brick stories with anonymous rectangular windows, cell windows, I suppose. Everything spoke the same note, calm, plain, unfussy, dignified order. Sufficient and unpretentious. It was indeed refreshing. Down within the quadrangle was a formal garden. Small rectangular lawns, roses and cacti in the beds. In the centre, 4 very tall, thin trees forming a square of pillars, framing a black plinth with a modest statue of Jesus, or perhaps the founder of the order. How right that a discipline, a community of monks, should be called an order. At least it felt exactly right here. I was amid an order, an uncluttered clarity. I've little doubt that were you to go there tomorrow, it would be little changed. Not much room for Dionysus here. Meanwhile, Kez had arrived from next door. He didn't look happy. What's wrong, Kez? I don't like it here. Seems okay. I don't like being on my own. Next door? Yes. Can I come in here with you? Well, there isn't much room in here, still I don't see why not. So we carried his mattress into my room and laid it on the floor. A bit cramped, but more chummy. Downstairs, we found Claudio. Michael and Kez, good, just in time. You must come with me, now, quickly. He paused and went through some sort of inner rewrite. It was like watching someone run full tilt into a sandpit. If you want to, that is, and of course not being in a hurry. But we should all go quickly now, while not being in a hurry. Go where? Unate. The film crew is waiting for me at Unate. What's that? It's a church. There are so many churches, Claudio. I sighed wearily. Unate is different. It is a special place. The bones of pilgrims have been found buried there. Is it far? No, it is not far. But it was a fair way out of town in the landscape. It stood isolate, surrounded by the stubble of wheat fields, or rather it seemed to focus and concentrate the fields, as a nut might concentrate a tree. Where the late afternoon sun hit it with light, it glowingly reflected back its brilliance, as did the golden stubble fields and the hard earth around it. On the church's shady side, the stone became sombre and sorrowful, introspective, like an echo of the stone of the church of Saint Jean back at the beginning. Roughly circular, it was as if a three-dimensional Taoist symbol had grown up out of the ground. While Claudio went off with Kes to film, I walked a circle around the church at a respectful distance through the stubble. The building had concentric layers. The outermost was an encircling stone wall 5 or 6 feet high. Inside that was a ring of arches, an ambulatory, maybe twice as high. Rising within that were the outer walls of the octagonal church itself, and within that, of course, the interior. The architecture imposed respect. I began to understand why I had instinctively encircled the building. Here was some power. We are cagey about power. All powerful things, a pylon, a turbine, a medieval relic, a python in a zoo, acquire a respectful space around them. In many parts of the world where there are pilgrimages to holy mountains, the mountain has to be circled by the pilgrim before it can be climbed. Presumably, visitors to ancient Athens would circle the Parthenon, viewing its processional frieze, before processing into the temple. The concentric design of Eunate signalled its power, a female power, for the curve in all its forms signifies female power as the straight line signifies the male. So the crescent moon, the tumescent womb, the sinuous snake become, in architectural terms, the arch, the dome, the arcade. As I walked around it, I could see that to walk in was to have an experience of curving around the building and penetrating through walls of increasing height. The male visitor, in effect, spiralled in and fertilized the building. Around the dark side, the building bulged into a lower semicircular apse. Looks pregnant, I thought. Mother and child, yes, this is Madonna and child in architectural form. But the child isn't born yet. Or to be more accurate, the daughter. It could not be a son in this female counter-cultural site. This place of death is a homage to birth. If Eunate is derived from Greek and Latin, it means well born. The floor of the inner ambulatory has thousands of long, thin stones arranged in a wave pattern like the sea. I absent-mindedly brushed my hands along a wall as I reached the door, and something fell into my palm. In my hand was a small yellow snail, its shell mimicking the spiral around the church I had just walked. Inside, it was gaunt, bare rock, undecorated arches. It felt like being within stone, elemental and forbiddingly cold, not warm and womb-like at all, but alien, primal as a mountain is. It was like being buried. An altar is the hearth of a church, special and auspicious, a focusing core that draws and invites, sacred to Hestia. The niche and apse at the climax of the chancel are holy wombs, in which the mystery of creation takes place. Approaching an altar, I often feel a sense of heightened expectation, a small thrill of potential. Not so here. Standing before this altar was unsettling. There was something bleak, even cruel. When the Greeks built temples, they did so to mark a place, a special place. You couldn't build one just anyway. The temple surrounded the spot, the grove, or spring, or site of a remarkable event, and made it more visible to those of poor emotional sight. Reverence partly, so that the inept did not blunder into the sacred like Oedipus at Colonus, but also to protect the insensitive and the foolish. The poor things should not be subjected to an unsolicited brush with cosmic powers. A temple is the ancient equivalent of a hazard notice. Level crossing ahead. Beware low-flying aircraft. I'm sure that the notion of building a church just anywhere would have been not only barbarous but stupid in the ancient world. Meanwhile, outside, round the sunny side, Angel the director, wearing the darkest, most impenetrable sunglasses, was seriously into film directing. I watched it for a while, not understanding what was going on too closely, when one of the crew appeared, dressed as an Arab. This obviously wasn't part of the script, and there was some arsing about and general laughter. When the filming had finished, Claudio took me aside and asked if I would be interested in participating in the creation of an energy field. What's that? You will see. What does it involve? We will meditate and I will speak a prayer. In Spanish? Yes. I won't understand much. It will not matter. The sounds will do their work. So we went into the church and sat peacefully and quietly meditated. After a while, Claudio began softly to speak a prayer, although it was more like a low, vibrant chant. I understood not a word. Then a zinging sensation began in the base of my spine and started to rise up my back. When it reached my head, it filled it with an effervescent tingling like Perrier water, a light aerated spring, millions of tiny silver bubbles welling up, gravitating upwards and bursting like an offering of themselves. Claudio said nothing afterwards, but smiled shyly, not a word. But I knew I had found the first special place that the woman at Thither Menor had spoken of. I told Claudio about her. Oh, you have met Margarita. He looked impressed. You know her? I asked. No, but I have heard of her. She is from Venezuela. She is well known on the way. Does she walk the way? Yes, but not as others do. She goes very slowly, and when she feels that there is someone she must talk to, then she stops and waits until they catch up. When she has spoken to them, she moves on. It is a great gift that she has spoken to you. You must think very carefully about what she said. Yes, I must, I said thoughtfully. Back in the town, the mood was utterly different. There was much preparation for a fiesta. There were tiers of seating around the edge of the small main square, where a stage was being fitted up with microphones, huge loudspeakers, and much other gear. However, along the tall, narrow, cavernous streets, the mood was not at all festive. The atmosphere was serious. In innumerable bars and down in dark subterranean private dives, men stood in the stone-chilled shade, drinking red wine, looking grim. Outside, eddies of people were beginning to collect at points of vantage. So we stood amid an excited group of young women, all wearing loose cotton low-cut summer dresses, their soft creamy brown arms palpably radiating the day's heat. Above us and down the vista of the street there had been draped white sheets over the balconies. Soon a parade approached, led by men and boys dressed in immaculate white shirts and trousers, each with a startling scarlet sash around their waist and a matching bandana around the neck. On the shoulders of 4 men, a gilt litter carrying a life-size standing figure of St. James, garbed as a pilgrim, with staff and a gourd for water. He wore a pea-green robe and a deep blue cape with scallop shells as decoration. Then, more impeccable white-clad men without the sash, but with scarlet berries instead. They carried small blue and gold horns, which they blew to warn of the approach of the gigantes, the giants. 12-foot-high effigies of a king and queen. Each had a wooden cage beneath its robes, which a man wore on his shoulders, along with the whole towering figure above. The effigies eerily trundled towards us, and then, as a band struck up, began to dance. As they moved forward, they twirled around over the uneven sloping road, a feat that took strength and balance. Smaller figures with huge grotesque heads wandered around the crowd, terrifying the children. Finally, a column of pairs of men and women danced, an unending swirling dance. The music had a cyclic quality, round and round, changing slightly like the folk music of Brittany. It was music for whirling, twirling, for dervishes. We had seen the German trio pretending to be medieval. This was the real thing. Plainly the king and queen represented male and female principles, but so did the colours. Traditionally, white is male because of sperm, and red is the female colour of creative energy because of menstrual blood. This is why we have the mistletoe and holly at Christmas, because of the white and red berries. I took the dancers to mean the harmonious interplay of male and female, on, world without end. We stopped off at a shop on the way back to the square with the fountain. Here we had our picnic. Kes chose the food. Kes is to the sandwich what Archie Shepp is to jazz. Innovative, but on the whole he produces a gruesome mess. On this occasion a creative mixture of chopped ham, cockles and Tabasco sauce, washed down with Rosado wine. Back at the refuge we discovered that Claudio had met a couple of women he knew and, as the monastery was full, had retired to somewhere in the basement to practice techniques of spiritual harmonization. It had been a long day, so I was glad to get back to our cell and get my boots off. "Hey, Kez, come and have a look at this." "Now that's clever, man. How did you manage that?" Both my feet were bright blue. "This, Kez, is a profound religious event of deep significance. Blue is a sacred colour. Feet feature prominently in the world's scriptures, and so are meaningful entities, cosmically speaking." "Nah," responded Kez, "your sweaty feet have made the dye in your socks run." We went peacefully to bed.